Welcome back to the channel. Super excited. We're here for the first episode of season 3 of Amphibia. So I was talking with Chris, my long absent partner on this channel. Who knows if he's gonna make a return. The YouTube thing was always kind of more of my thing than his thing. So we'll see. Maybe he'll come back onto the channel or maybe not. But we do watch these shows together. And he hasn't finished season 2. He just got back to Wortwood, and we were watching this the other day, and we were watching The Shut-In, and it was so weird to realize that like we're almost a year later from when the second part of season 2 started, and now we're starting season 3. It feels like it hasn't been that long, which I guess is good on them. It doesn't feel like I've been waiting forever for this show, but at the same time, I'm super hyped and ready for it. So let's just get into it. I didn't even watch the trailer. Like I thought about watching and reacting to the trailer, but I didn't want to know anything. I just kind of wanted to come in cold. So other than some like random thumbnails on YouTube, and like obviously what we got last year, I have no idea what's coming. So yeah, looking forward to this. Let's get into it. Also, I want to give a shout out to the fans out there who are organizing all of this footage. If y'all know what I mean, like I bought the show on Google Play because I don't have any of the Disney subscriptions, but I still want to like financially support the show. But also, we all know where we're watching it and like getting footage for reactions and stuff like that. And so I appreciate how they are helping keep the fan community alive, and definitely pledge to them on Patreon. So yeah, anyway, let's get into it. And if you've enjoyed what you heard so far, please consider giving this video a like, comment, or subscribe. It would really help our channel grow, and I'd really appreciate it. 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, that music! The new normal. Oh, her legs! I forgot she has legs. So she just doesn't believe what happened, which is fair. It's a good way to reset the emotional stakes, I guess. Oh.
Come on, guys. Let's have some fruit-style quarantine fun.
Oh, quarantine jokes, no.
But you stay with us at all times. And if anything goes wrong, it's back to lockdown.
Thank you so much. I promise you won't regret it. All right.
I don't want to ruin the vibes, but I'm a little... the fact that like her dad has a darker skin tone than her mom, and how like light skin is usually associated with like softness and femininity and beauty, and dark skin with like more masculinity, and how that messes lots of people up in lots of communities. Wow, that is very scary, Frobo. Some of the like thumbnails I saw on YouTube involved Marcy looking kind of like the Beast. So I don't know what's gonna happen there, but it doesn't seem good. Stealth mode? That's not fair. Is that like stinky one? I forget what it's called.
It's a Thai favorite. Not really my thing since it smells like
Yep.
Durian first time over here. Everyone, attack!
You know, it's weird. It seems ludicrous for them to attack. Like, I know they did that stuff in Amphibia all the time, but with the context of the normal world, it just seems like a really crazy, dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, I figured. Power up to save your friends. I think that was supposed to be that she moves really fast. I wish the animation itself had been a little bit faster. But otherwise, cool. Alright, here's the cost. Pretty simple one, you just get tired. Oh, I'm loving this ending sequence. Or are these the title cards? I don't know, I haven't seen them yet. Probably not. Like, they wouldn't change the OP, they already did that. They showed it to us. Oh, that was adorable, that was cute. Alright, let's get into the breakdown. So, that was a really fun return to the Amphibia world. I liked that it was super chill. I don't know, some people might like pilot episodes that are like super hyped, but I like that I like pilot episodes that do this, that just like ease you back into the world and remind you of where things are and what's going on and kind of like set a new status quo. And so what's been set is that we know what Anne's goals are going to be for the entire season. She's going to try to basically return her life to normal, right? Get her human friends back into the human world and, you know, repair their relationships, get her frog family back into Amphibia and make sure that they're safe. And in order to do that, we know that she's going to have to defeat King Andrias. And she knows that too, that King Andrias's plans for both worlds would mean that neither of the groups of people that she cares about would be safe, so she wants to defeat them. So we have very simple, clear goals. I like it. I like that she knows what they are. I like that the story has clearly set them up, knows what they are. And it also establishes this new normal where the planters are in the human world, they're hiding out at Anne's house, but they're not trapped there. They have disguises where they can sometimes go out, which will of course allow for us to be in more locations than just the house, which I'm sure we're gonna need in order to pursue the plot, right? So that's great. I don't know if I appreciate the nod to the quarantine. I don't know if I appreciate it at all. It was what it was, right? It's just like, yeah, quarantine can suck in these various ways and can make you feel crazy and make you want to get out of the house. But I don't know if we're at a place where we can joke about it yet, because even though most of us aren't in full quarantine conditions, COVID's still raging through the country, it's still raging through the world. So to kind of treat it like it's in the past and now we can make a joke about it, I'm not sure I'm ready. It's too soon. I'm not ready to joke about it yet. So I appreciate the effort, but I was like, oh no, not quarantine. And then because they specifically said quarantine, which is a response to the spreading of a disease, as opposed to lockdown, which can be for anything, it kind of makes it weird that they're not walking around with masks. I don't know about anyone else, but I found it weird that they went to the grocery store and they didn't have masks. I just kept looking at them being like, what are you doing? Why don't you have masks on? So that reminded me of quarantine in our world. I was like, why are you at the grocery store sans mask? So it was just a weird reaction. Yeah.
Editing, Gabriel. So to clarify, I'm not saying that they should have had masks. I'm just saying that because I had quarantine on my mind, I then found it really weird to see characters in a public location without masks. So I wasn't sure if I was clear about that. It wasn't like a Righteous Crusade sort of thing. I was just saying it just made me have this weird reaction to it because they had mentioned quarantine.
And I haven't felt that way about watching other shows that were shot during the quarantine but don't have the quarantine built into their world, right? So yeah. Well, let's talk about Anne's development. I like that it was just expressly said she has matured. You know, we've seen that throughout the show. We've seen how much she has come to be a hero in her circles and help the planters and help the town. And I think it could have been. I think the setup of this episode made it a little bit difficult to show this lesson rather than tell it, because they were confined to the house right? And then the idea of like, oh, we're just gonna go for a quick trip to the grocery store doesn't really give us a chance to, like, okay, so here's what I like would have liked, I guess, to show that lesson instead of just constantly like having it told to us by various characters of like, oh, she has matured, right? Like, I would have liked Anne to do things similar to what she would have done before and now have her parents react to her in the same way they would have done before, like treated her like irresponsible kid, or kind of like how Hop Pop treated her at the beginning of the show. And then maybe contrast that with how Hop Pop treats her, which is kind of like as a trusted member of the family. And then there could have been like a lesson at the end about how like Anne really has changed and her family members, her parents, can now trust her to take on more responsibility, which she's going to need to do to accomplish her goals. And maybe she could have shared some of her goals with them then and been like, listen, I know that I was irresponsible before, but this is my responsibility now. Like they took care of me and I have to make sure that I take care of them and get them home, and I have to get Marcy and Sasha home as well. And when they see her take responsibility for those things, then they realize that she's changed. I think that would have been like a better way of doing it, just kind of having Hop Pop say it and then her say it, and then her parents kind of come to the conclusion at the end that they're gonna say it because she didn't buy like coffee at the market. I'm sure, like, I'm guessing that the season just has other things to worry about and they just didn't want to deal with this element of it. But because Anne's personal development and growth is so integral to the story, I wish they had taken a little bit more time to show us how she has changed and like to let her parents develop that understanding of who she is now a little bit more naturally, rather than just kind of telling it to us and trying to get it out of the way so that they can do other things later. So I don't know. I guess we'll see how the rest of the season goes, which will maybe change how I feel about this plot point. Because I've definitely, like, for example, whenever I've written stories and I've let other people read them and give me feedback, a lot of time if they just read the beginning, they'll be like, oh, there was this interesting element, I wish you had spent more time on it. But I kind of, as a storyteller, know I'm gonna develop that element over the course of the story, and this is really just the first time you'll see it, and it'll continue to be introduced as time goes on. So I recognize why they want to feel like to spend more time on that element of the story, but it would kind of mess up the pacing if I just like exhaustingly went into it at the beginning of the story rather than setting up some other things I need to set up. And I do know I'm going to circle back around to some of these things later in the story. So it may be a situation like that, right? Like, I would like to see this explored more, but it may have messed up the pacing to try to make this, to like show it more organically in this episode, or maybe in this episode or the next, and they're gonna touch on it again. So I guess we'll see how this develops. I hope it doesn't get dropped and like this is the only time that we see it, because I would like to spend more time like getting to see how Anne has evolved and how she has grown. All right, so there's that. There's not much to say about the other characters right now. I think it was really hilarious that Hop Pop was like very much siding with the parents, which he should, because as he said himself, he's an adult, he's the parent of their family, but then sometimes was treated like a kid. It was just like a weird place for Hop Pop to be in, and not in a bad way. I think it was really amusing, and I think they played it off well. I like that Polly is just going around kicking things and doing all this other stuff because she's like, I got legs now, you know how it is. I thought that was funny. And I like that her parents are pretty chill people, but on the other hand, I'm a little worried because they're characters in an animated show, and I feel like part of like being in any show, but definitely in an animated show, is that your personality kind of has to be cranked up to an 11, if that makes sense, so that you can contrast well with other characters. And so I'm a little worried that because they're played so straight, not in the LGBTQ way, but that they're played so like realistically and very toned down, that it means that they're not going to be a big part of the story. Because really, to be in one of these stories, you as a character have to be so distinct and have your personality traits so turned up to an 11 that you can interact with all the other characters and distinguish yourselves from them and get into interesting conflicts. Like, for example, someone like Sasha, who is controlling, right, and has problems with control and with passive aggressiveness and with manipulation, right? In real life, those things may come out in like really subtle, small ways, but in this, like, you see it over the top, and she tries to control everybody, and she tries to take over a kingdom, and she's willing to like let her adoptive toad friends like be scared while she rides this giant worm to get a hammer and her eyes glow, you know, like, so like exaggerating it to that point, I think is what's common, especially like in action adventure stories like this, like fantasy action adventure stories. And so the fact that her parents don't have distinct personality traits like that like pop out from like all the others, I think means that they're not going to be huge players in this story, and they're just going to kind of fade into background elements, which is okay. Again, maybe there are just other things that the story has to spend time on, but it's just something I noticed. And then what I kind of mentioned during the episode, just a slight little hang up, is that I wish that her mom and her dad weren't different skin tones. Particularly that her dad wasn't a darker skin tone than her mom. So if anyone's not familiar, I don't want to like get into a giant diatribe about colorism because it's a downer. Spoiler alert, it's the ugly cousin of racism. And this was an awesome episode, start of Amphibia season, and I don't want to like bring the vibes down. But just a small note that like colorism is a problem in communities all across the world. That includes like Asian communities, includes Black communities. And it's just the idea that lighter skin is better and seeing lighter skin as preferable. Now, it's not necessarily tied into the Atlantic slave trade in the same way that racism in the Americas is. Many of these places have their own internal and like long-standing reasons for preferring lighter skin over darker skin. For example, lighter skin being associated with being a noble, like being part of nobility and not having to work outside and do manual labor or be a farmer, right? So you end up with lighter skin and therefore it's seen as a marker of high class versus like darker skin being seen as a marker of like low class status. But the debasement and degradation of dark skin because of the Atlantic slave trade has certainly spread all over the world, right? That's unfortunately, we live in a world that has been affected by European colonialism everywhere, and therefore all of the bad ideas that were part of that colonizing effort, including seeing darker skin as a curse or seeing it as a mark of being less human, those ideas spread everywhere. There is not a place on the globe that has not been touched by those ideas. So it's not just here in America, it's not just our burden, right? It shows up all over the world in various ways. And so those ideas of like lighter skin being more preferable to darker skin have definitely been supercharged and added to because of that anti-Black racism. And the more subtle features of it are that lighter skin is usually associated with femininity and darker skin is usually associated with masculinity or like brutishness, where lighter skin is associated with refinement and fragility, right? Like we kind of inherently know how these concepts are grouped together, and therefore it is not uncommon in many communities around the world to see lighter skinned women being seen as more beautiful and darker skinned men being seen as more manly. And so you will often get pairings of darker skinned men with lighter skinned women. This is true in the African American community. This is true in, like, I know it's a big problem in India. This is like, it happens everywhere. And so it was just a little sad, I guess, to see that pattern replicated, maybe probably unconsciously in the coloring of Anne's parents. And of course this like hurts, primarily it hurts darker skinned women who are not seen as feminine or as much as like womanly as their lighter skinned peers. It also has like an effect on lighter skinned men who are not seen as manly or man enough. That can happen, but the consequences against men are obviously lighter because you don't have the compounding of sexism on it, right? So just that. Be aware of it. Let's not do that in our stories as much as possible. And when you see it, kind of like you can like put a pin in it, like in this, like it's not gonna ruin my enjoyment of Amphibia in any way. I don't think there's any maliciousness about it at all behind the crew. Like, if anything, like I can imagine someone who actually had like just based their character designs off their real parents, and it just happens the problem isn't with the show, is what I'm saying, right? Like this problem exists in the world, and if someone kind of replicated it and put it in the show, it's not there because the creators are colorist. It's there because the world is colorist and the art is reflecting that. And yeah, ideally we would like be able to catch these things, but you can't catch everything. Bias is gonna sneak into your work because that's just the water that we all grew up drinking, right? So yeah, just wanted to point that small thing out. But otherwise, like I said, I am really happy to return to Amphibia World. I can't believe it's been almost a year since Amphibia was here, and it's been like, I think 2 months since the Owl House ended. And there's been a lot of stuff happening in my like own personal life, which has resulted in less videos on the channel, but hopefully this will help me get back into the swing of things and actually like getting videos up day of, reaction videos. And I'm just glad that we're all here again. This will be fun. So this is gonna be a great ride. See you all next week. Bye. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this reaction and breakdown, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Please give the video a like, comment, share with your friends, help my channel grow. I would love to do more of these and just share my thoughts on more stories with you. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.